everybody, I'm Caleb Hack. Welcome to another video. This month, the first book I read is 1984 by George Orwell. For those of you who do not know, this is a fiction book. It tells the story of Winston Smith, who lives under a totalitarian government in, of course, 1984. Some call this book an illustration of a negative utopia. This book will remain timely for years to come, and it has always been timely. Even when it was first published in 1949, it was seen as a critique of the Soviet Union, because of course at the time there was the Cold War. Later, this book actually was seen as a critique of technology. In the late 20th century, as technology started to skyrocket in advancement, people clung onto the idea that technology was being used to spy on them. Because in the book, there are these things called telescreens, which are basically like TVs, except for they have monitors in them, which surveil the citizens, so that the party or the government that Winston is under can spy on them. Later, and really in present time, it's more seen as a critique of lying. Throughout the book, you see a lot of lying, because what the party does is lie on top of lie on top of lie, so that it becomes the truth. And that's certainly what goes on currently in politics, from politicians to just your average Joe who downloads social media and starts spreading fake news articles and fake statistics. And the same is obviously true for media. Obviously, there's always been fake news from newspapers and now obviously to TV, but it's become now slanderous of the other political party. Now it's only biased reports, only reporting what makes their party or their beliefs look good. The last point I would like to make about this book is actually when Orwell was writing this. When Orwell was writing this, he was nearly dead to tuberculosis. He in fact was like feverishly writing down the last few pages here because he was not feeling good. And I think it goes to show how much dedication he put into this book. Instead of spending the rest of his life traveling and exploring and really trying to live out that last year, he instead decided to write this book. And he died a year after this was published, at the age of 46, which is, a young age to die. I think this book deserves a 10 out of 10 rating. It was really good. To close this book out, I'll end with a quote from the book. Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. The next book I would like to talk about is The Perfect Storm. It's about the crew of the Andrew Gale, who set out to sea and faced the worst storm imaginable. This book shares the assembly of the crew and also facts about sailing in the sea. One of the facts I found really interesting was the scientific name for swordfish. I'm going to completely butcher my pronunciation of it. Exvis gladios, which means sword. And the book, the narrator says that he read once in a scientific textbook that whoever discovered the fish was really impressed by the fact that it had a sword. The book was also turned into a movie starring George Clooney. Here's a photo of Nantucket Avenue during the 1991 storm. The storm hit Boston, and I can't imagine what it'd be like to experience this. Here's a quote from a website I found, which I'll put in the description below, as well as the other resources I used in this video. The storm left a trail of destruction from Nova Scotia to Florida, killing 13 people and causing close to $500 million in damage. I encourage all of you guys to read this article because it goes into details that the book doesn't point out. Anyway, this is a very interesting story. I'm curious why we as humans love a story of man versus nature. There are constantly TV shows, movies, books about man trying to survive hostile environments. My best guess as to why humans love to see determination and perseverance is because we want to have the ability to get through anything and live through anything. I think the greatest encapsulation of that is man going through an extremely rare climate. This concludes my review of The Perfect Storm. I'm going to rate this book 7 out of 10. The next book is Upheaval by Jared Diamond. The book is summed up in 3 different parts. The first part talking about personal crises and how they relate to national crises, how to overcome the crises that you deal with in life, and how those are similar to how nations face crises. The second is the crises that have happened in the past and how other nations have overcome them. I think the best illustration of this is the story of Germany. Nearly all of the Germans were charged with war crimes because a lot of them participated in the atrocious acts that happened. I think we need to realize that there's evil in all of us. Carl Jung called us the shadow. The idea that there is a different psyche in all of us that is malicious. I think we need to know what it would take for us to become spiteful. In Germany, people became Nazis because they could. They wanted to be violent and hateful. It's quite depressing that to think that ordinary people could become capable of but they were. The people who were not Nazis were pretty much only kids. These kids had to accept Germany's past and disassociate from their parents, which you can imagine must have been hard. This third section of this book explores the crises in the future for different countries. My favorite chapters of this section were the chapters describing the challenges for the United States. He talks about class divide, polarization, climate change, voting, and etc. I rate this book 10 out of 10. The last book is Elon Musk by Ashlee Vance. I personally liked when the author talked about Elon Musk and how he handled situations. The thing I wasn't a major fan of is when he was talking about the companies. I thought the author did a good job of describing what the challenges the companies face were. Part about this book was him talking about Elon Musk. Because when he was talking about Elon Musk, he was talking about some of the abnormal things he did. Like when he was a kid, he would read for 10 hours straight. And he would sometimes read 2 books a day. And now as an adult, sometimes he'll go on 2-day streaks of just video games. He would, when he was a child, and sometimes still does today, go in these trances. Where no one would be able to get him out. He would be completely spaced out. It's really interesting stuff. I highly recommend this book. I think this book deserves a 7 out of 10 rating. I really like the books I read this month. Just as a reminder, check the description down below for all the different books I read, the authors of those books, the page counts, as well as the facts about the books. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Caleb Hack, signing out.